So, yeah, this is the second part of our panels, and now we're looking at 4 games from the Geidai students. I'm gonna start with the game Public Bath, which was created by, wait a second. I'm not starting with Public Bath, sorry. I'm starting with Baby in the Cradle. Designed and directed by Kazuki Yohara and Masafumi Nikita and Yoshikazu Fujita. So I'll start this, share my screen. Yeah, so this was the first of the two games. And yeah, I found it's a VR experience. So the little announcement, sleep to start, is technically it's the announcement for me to close the eyes to start the experience, and then it's a succession of multiple dream scenes where I just float, and from scene to scene, I close my eyes to move forward in the experience. And in the very beginning, after closing my eyes, I get pulled into this dream vortex, passing first through this night scenery in black and white, which kind of reminds me of falling asleep. And then this night sky becomes active with all kinds of dreamy forms of life. And I re-emerge in this colorful landscape that vaguely reminds me of a landscape that I can float, and also all kinds of other things float. So things behave differently. And it clearly is a surreal moment that I'm experiencing, or a dream moment. We feel light, I feel floating, and it's a lightness that I feel, I guess, when I sleep and dream, not when I'm awake and conscious and doing things. The one thing that is always watching over me is this flower that floats, and almost like if I imagine a baby in the cradle, it's like yeah, the mother that watches over me as I'm lying in the cradle and I'm looking into the world. The dream scene feels quite realistic at the same time, with clear activities, creatures, etc. So I can also think of having the perspective of a baby who does not have so much experience with the world yet, and things look weird. They look new. My experience as a baby doesn't extend so far. I don't have all this experience, so I don't have necessarily the means of telling normal from non-normal, from surreal. So that is the other layer of thought that I can get from this, where I drift through dreamscapes, all distinct behaviors, distinct creatures. And it might feel like a baby with a limited memory, where everything is new. Every moment that comes to me is new and is full with phenomenal surprise.
Yeah, I played this about a year ago. Oh, do you need to translate?
Yeah, I was wondering, I mean, I've been talking for a while. Do you want to translate maybe in between, or?
No, not for this session. We'll give them
Okay.
a transcript later. So yeah.
Okay, sounds
continue,
good.
please.
Yeah, so what I feel is, oh, sorry. Yeah, what I feel is it's a meditative reflection really on what it means on one hand to be a baby, but also to be an adult. And what it means to experience the world differently in a surreal, poetic lens. While I can also have this whiff of a nightmare that could lurk behind all the beautiful colors, when I'm thinking of my adult experience, where I read, say, the scenes of the penguins in the Antarctic, the disappearing ice and all of that, more as a nightmare scenario than as a soothing baby dream. So it's really an interesting oscillation between those two perspectives that I feel there. And in this way, I'm pushed to just rather keep floating from dreamscape to dreamscape in an aimless exploration. Without a purpose, no task that I have to fulfill, and it's floating along with things as things float by. So that's kind of how I would imagine. I don't really have that memory anymore of myself as a baby and how I see the world fresh, but this is how I could really imagine it.
I played this almost a year ago, and I was lucky enough to be able to lie in the hammock and put on the VR headset. And the first thing I'll say is very practical, which is that you've done an enormous amount of work since then. It's just there's scene after scene after scene of content. I have the impression that I saw a rough version of the end, but maybe it was the beginning. The baby was there and I was moving towards it. I don't know. But it really feels like we're deep in someone's imagination. And I think the hammock is an important context because, or important uh, frame, an important beginning point for the player, because it's actually it's not it's not necessarily relaxing, the content. It's not nervous or upsetting, but there's just it's such a stimulated mind that I'm witnessing. Um, Very, very active imagination that we're seeing. And I think we probably just, on some level, assume we're seeing into the creator's imagination. I don't think there's supposed to be a very big difference between the fiction of being in this dream and the idea of what just comes out of your brain daily. I guess as a creator myself, you would just sit down and on a given month just produce one of those scenes and feel free to associate different objects with different experiences. Um, and I can also imagine this would work really well in a gallery situation, and you could just put it on loop. I'm not sure it's so important that someone starts it at one particular place and ends it at one particular place. It seems like you could just always have it going in in a gallery, and people could put it on. And when they return back to where they were when they started, then they would realize that they're done and move on.
And I actually do feel a certain framing, which becomes very rewarding at the end. So when I remember those kind of rolling eyes at the very beginning, they return also, right? I have let's say, the flower who's always looking over me, and those rolling eyes as an outline that appear at the very beginning and they reappear at the very end. These are the only two pieces that I remember that I recognize. Everything else is in constant flux and constant change. So nothing repeats except those two. And I mean, thinking of myself in the role of a baby in the cradle, then I would very clearly identify this with the first sighting of my parents. And then I recognizing them and seeing them again. But it could run on a loop, I agree.
Yeah, it feels very far along and it feels very thorough. It feels like it was made by a bunch of people in the sense that there's a lot of content. Um, yeah, I hope you can get it out to. At the same time, I don't think you have to feel pressure to always make it an installation, something for a gallery, but I hope you can get it out there and put it on Steam or some other platform so people with VR headsets can download it and experience it.
I mean, the format as a VR, and even as a very particular kind of VR with the eye tracking, suggests that it ideally is an installation, right? And I think it works well. I mean, it's really, often I find if a VR experience is too fast and not rich enough, so that it's not worth putting on the headset and getting all set up and so on. But I feel here you really get a full experience and a deep experience. So I think it's a very beautiful aesthetic that's unfolding across the different worlds. The worlds are clearly distinct. there's the fun fair, there's the Antarctic, like all of them have a somewhat different style and different behavior. And I just float through them. And this is, I think, a very soothing, but still, as Peter also said, a very, an experience really full of energy. So yeah, I would be happy seeing that as an installation in some gallery or so.
Very good.
I mean, I'm curious. I mean, Peter was suggesting we assume we very much look into the kind of the mindset and experiences of the creator. I'm kind of curious of how autobiographic it is, actually.
ちょっと興味あるのはこの作品が湯原さんにとってどの程度ノンフィクションなのか、電気的な要素があるのかっていうのはちょっとっていうのはリラックスさせるための作品なんですけども、自分が実際見たりプレイしてみると非常に作った人のものすごい活発な脳の動きとかエネルギーを感じる作品になってると思うからそうなんていうのかな、これはまさに自分のことなのかどうかっていうのが気になります。
そうですね。経験だったりリラックスした時だったりすごい落ち着いた時っていうのを抽象化して形にしたみたいなところはあって、なんだろう、具体的なリラックスできるエピソードをすごい抽象化したキャラクターとかが出てくるっていうものではありますね。
So, it is based on these elements or episodes that make me feel relaxed and kind of making them extremely abstract. Like I really dug deep into how to show these experiences and these characters in the way that they will be a reflection of how I relax. So in that way, yeah, it is me, and not just something that I imagined and drew from the outer world.
Yeah, great. Congratulations, Kazuki. I think I really like it. It came. I think I also saw it quite a while ago, and it has come a long way since then.
Yeah.
So congratulations.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah. Should I jump into the next one? Okay. All right. So the next one is Public Bath from Young Lee and share my screen.
I can stream this if you. Oh no, I thought it was going to take a few minutes, but it won't.
It's coming. Okay. I'm gonna turn off the sound. Yeah. So with this one, yeah, congratulations, Young. I think this is also, I also saw this quite a while ago, and I already like the setting of the bath. I didn't have so much time to spend with it at the time, I think. But now, after having looked at it a couple of times, it's really quite an amazing feeling to stand in this public bath. The dome ceiling and the circular room have me standing in the middle, observing the world around me. And then sometimes myself, in I think maybe not the most pleasant or advantageous perspective. I feel like I gotta lose some weight. I feel the steamy atmosphere, and I'm immersed into the sounds. And in the very beginning, I just stand there and let my gaze move around in the room, and I just observe. And my gaze gets increasingly purposeful, gets attracted by those subtle changes in the sound, and I discover little details like the little bug running around. And as I continue to look around in the room, I realize that my gaze actually has power. I can activate things, and it reveals things. So I start searching for those little details and start trying out what I can do, what I can make people or animals do by looking at them. And this transformation from kind of a self-immersed wandering gaze turning towards an outward directed kind of staring like thing is actually a really interesting play mechanic, I think, of this experience. And once I'm at that place, it becomes apparent that people are naked and we're actually sharing an intimate space and very intimate actions. So I find this, it's a subtle transformation, and it's a subtle process of how I learn what my gaze is actually doing. It really transforms my relationship, my thinking about my looking and my gaze and the situation that I'm in. And the public bath seems familiar, but also very foreign at the same time. So I think it's, yeah, it's really beautiful. And the sound is having a great effect, and it's very successful in creating this atmosphere and attracting me to those different moments. Great, congratulations.
Yeah, and the key word is gaze. It's off. I don't know if it's used. I know it's, well, gaze is used often to talk about cinema and to think about, as you probably know, to talk about where, you know, what it means that I get to see something. I get to be a voyeur. I'm invited to watch and look. And it's apropos that at a public bathhouse, I think in if it were real, I would not want to gaze. I would not want to stare at people. There's probably a strong sense of trying to respect space and respect what I'm looking at. Even though I'm not obviously I should not go into one of these places because I'm not a woman, so that seems extra special. But even as a woman, I would imagine there's a certain politeness to not just staring at people. But here, if you don't stare, if you don't use your gaze, you're missing out. And the way you draw people to be both beautiful and flawed at the same time, not everyone in here looks like a traditional idea of a beautiful person. And the art style also distances us from, it's not realistic art style. It doesn't look photorealistic. It actually feels very disarming. It feels very much like, it feels very comfortable, and it makes the gaze for me not invasive. I don't feel like I'm hurting anyone when I look around. And I feel a celebration of the strangeness of the human being and a different kind of beauty when it comes to just being who we are and letting literally our bodies show. And you have the right amount of, not only is the art style, if there's a spectrum from completely abstract to completely realistic in art, you're obviously somewhere in the middle. And you find a place that seems to match well with the realistic and the unrealistic in the space. So there are pigs in there, right? But there's also just people in there. There's some doors up really high, which doesn't seem, I don't think, likely. But then there's just normal stuff. I think this, I don't know if it's tea or beer sitting there. So you're mixing with, there's a lot that I would expect to see in a public bathhouse, but then there's things I would not expect to see there. And that seems to be on a spectrum that aligns with the art style as a spectrum from real to not real. So yeah, I think it's a very nice choice for a premise, and I think it's a nice balance between. I felt a little nervous the first time I played it, like I shouldn't be there, but then I felt like it was actually a kind of very honest embrace of human beings that made me not feel that way at all.
Yeah, and what I liked is also the notion. I mean, a lot of those people around me in the bathhouse are almost like stereotypes, even though they look very realistic, and I can see, yeah, this is a person in, I can guess the age and so on. But then there's the person who keeps eating and eating and eating, and then there's the one who's just completely occupied with knitting with a yarn on her head, and like all these different typologies that I can actually relate to, where I can see, yeah, those are, well, maybe those are folks that I would see in a bathhouse, and the degree of specificity in terms of the detail and say how the skin is, and like all of those things, and that in conjunction with the stereotyping of certain characters that are around is a very interesting balance, where on one hand there's a little bit of a humoristic, caricaturistic element, but then on the other hand it's just shamelessly honest about life, which is, I think, a really good balance, a good spot to be in.
Yeah, that's a very interesting point. That so some of the characters, I heard from Muyan that some of the characters comes from the real story. So Muyan, will you please explain about it?
英語で日本語でもいいですか?
English.
Okay, so like there's one woman character who loses one of his breast. He's the laundry one. So, I don't know how to say that. The new gun.
Yeah, one woman has a scar from a breast cancer surgery. Yeah.
So that's when I doing this work, so my aunt was just doing the surgery at the same time, and I mean, as a woman, I feel it's really embarrassing, and I don't know. It's a really important thing for women to lose a part of her body, but there is still someone try to ignore the fact and try to still go to like winter swimming or the public bathhouse. And I feel that that attitude is really, I don't know, it's really brave. So like, and when you see the entire bathhouse, you won't feel that that woman is so, I don't know, metatsu. And
when you see a bathhouse full of very unique people, you're saying that even with a scar, she doesn't look that different or stand out.
Right, that's right. She looks like just the same as the other woman, anyone else. So like for that reason, I designed that woman who lose one of her breasts. And there are some other characters like this one. They really come from some the people I ever met in the public bathhouse. Like the woman, she carried 3 of her baby into the bathhouse, and some other girls find it embarrassing to see a little boy in here. But I mean, for the mom, maybe it's the most convenient way to take shower of her baby, something like that.
Yeah, thank you for that backstory. I mean, it really resonates, and that is, I think, what I meant with shamelessly honest about the reality of life, right? And I found also when I watched it earlier, like a couple of days ago, just the treatment of body hair and then a tattoo and so on. There's actually quite a bit of contrast. So a lot of the colors and contrasts are reduced and pastely, but then there's this contrast that draws me in and that makes me actually read. I was thinking about like sometimes with older people, you read the wrinkles and you realize, oh yeah, this person has a lot of life experience and has lived through things and so on. And you start reading those details. And then that in conjunction with the feeling self-conscious about doing it, right? I mean, that element is definitely there. You might get somewhat comfortable with it and you might start playing with it because, well, in the end, it's a game. But still, there is an element that at least made me somewhat self-conscious about staring and trying to evoke things with my stare.
And it's a really good use of a still camera, of a camera that doesn't move around. Obviously, you turn around, but giving us an entire space where there's something to look at everywhere. And it's quite rich and lush. There's plenty to see, and there's plenty and at the same time, it feels like enclosed. Like it feels like I'm being held into this place that is probably what it feels like in a bathhouse is like there's really a ceiling over you, there's walls around you, and we're unable to communicate, say, heat and like a very humid air. But I get that to some extent just because of how much how much detail there is in the world.
Yeah, wonderful project. So I think it's exactly those two projects that I saw, I don't know, a year ago or so when I was visiting, and they both, on one hand stuck in my mind, but also developed since. So yeah, congratulations.
Thank you so much.
All right, so I'm going to take over the screen at least. You're still in charge, Andreas, but I can take over the screen.
Why am I in charge?
I don't know. You seem to be good at it. All right. Let's see if I can get this right. Are you seeing YouTube right now? Or I mean, Google Video. Okay, so we're gonna look at Rolling by Yuka Shina. And definitely, let me know if there's any. Well, I won't know if it goes silent or there's no streaming or it stops it or whatnot. But here we go. We have a 2-minute video. And there we go. It's already stopped. Don't worry, this is part of life. There we go. Okay, very good. So what I really like about this project is the premise of being put in a bubble or ball, I'm not sure which it is, and that allowing for a combination of two game genres. We have the genre of the bouncing ball that we typically, if we have a bouncing ball in games, we tend to see it. It's not us, but we see it bouncing around, whether it's a game that simulates, I don't know, pool or something, some sort of beach ball or a sport ball that's featured in a sport. And then we have, of course, the first person perspective. Separately, we have a genre of first person perspective, exploration of a cityscape. And so when you put them together, and the intro is very important to help me understand that I'm in a ball. It was very clear. And once I'm in it, I embrace the idea of being this kind of like ping pong ball bouncing around a city haphazardly, but then there's the tension of those I call them tacks, but these spikes that probably that were dangerous. So coupling the idea, the kind of fearlessness of being a ball bouncing around with the idea of being a human also that can fall down these, fall a long distance atop a building, and then be surprised at the top of a building with spikes or tacks that are dangerous. Frankly, give a very strange combination of genres that that I found interesting.
Yeah, I mean, to me, being the bouncing ball actually never felt like a safe thing where I can bounce around. I always felt more like it's a soap bubble. It's a soap bubble that needs to be maintained. I mean, okay, it can bounce, but it's very fragile. So my bouncing around in that city was kind of a precarious thing, I found. And it's weird. There's, I mean, obviously it's a very simple environment that's rather abstracted, but it has just enough degree of realistic features that I think about what city might that be? Where might this be? And where am I bouncing here? So this kind of hint of a connection to our reality makes those elements that I encounter come across quite differently. I mean, you could say those oxygen capsule is, well, that's just a power up and it's just hanging there in the air like it does in games. But then at the same time, it gets this connotation of it's medication. And oxygen seems like a life-maintaining essential thing. That little sip of fresh air in the city becomes something that makes me think of something else than just bouncing around in a playground style environment. It still very much is in that. And there is a component where the city becomes small and really my playground that is fun, but it never gets fully to that level where I feel just comfortable doing it. There is this level of precarity being in my soap bubble, being dependent on the oxygen medication and having to avoid those pitfalls of tax and so on. So I found that there's a little bit of a rupture in the straightforwardness of the experience that I really appreciate.
Something I would try as just an idea is, since I think the oxygen's a very good choice for a power up. So it's a very traditional decision to have capsules to collect around a cityscape that will help my progress, particularly when I've just experienced some sort of loss. But if the size of the bubble were affected by damage as well as oxygen capsules, and that made it play differently. So I got tons and tons of oxygen, which was very exciting and very good because that's what I should be going for. But then the bubble got so big that it plays awkwardly, let's say. But then again, when I hit a bunch of the spikes and it gets quite small, it turns out to be the most fun moment in the game, and yet the precarity, the danger is at its highest because I'm very close to popping my bubble. It's just a recommendation, but this kind of relationship between something being very good but bad and good and bad at the same time is something people find to be an interesting stress that different people will react to in different ways, and you might find it might be revealing what that says about the person, which if they like it big or small, and so on.
That is
Very
actually
good.
something that I was grappling with. First time running on those nails, I was expecting that's it, my bubble is done, but I'm still bouncing. So that was, I mean, the explanation that you're bringing makes sense, that I'm just losing levels of air until I'm finally not having any air between me and the nail anymore. That makes sense, but it's something that I was, I had to grapple with. What does it mean to hit attack?
Yeah. Very good. Very good project.
Yeah,
thank
fun.
you. All right, here I go again. So Yu Wu has made Welcome Back Home. You turn on the sound, and I think you can hear it now. Ooh. Just a second. Give me 1 second. I can. Okay, so I just turned it down a bit so that your overall volume. Okay, I'm gonna enter. I think I'd like to talk a little over it. I think it's appropriate this piece to talk and think aloud.
Can turn down the sound in the question mark. Here is the question mark.
Look at you. That's so sophisticated. Okay, then I gotta find. Okay, so I'm talking. This is how loud I am when talking. How's me compared to the volume? Should I turn it up?
Perfect.
Okay. So I have an extremely charming house sleeping on the hillside, and I have options of what I might do. Some of them give away a little bit of what I might get, and some of them don't. I click on the house, I get a very good piece of feedback here, which is saying, yes, you did click on it, and it's not going to do anything, is what that says to me. I click once on the bed, and I get the same kind of feedback, which tells me, yes, you did click on this, but that's not what you want to do with it. And if my house wasn't sleeping before, it's like when a horse sleeps standing up and you feel bad for it, and you're like, okay, why don't you take a big nap? So that's nice. I'll try it. I won't go in order. I'm gonna give it a washing machine right away. Ooh. So that's, I don't know what to think exactly. I got to think that out loud a little. Let me see if a combination matters. Let's give it some vegetables. Oh, so the vegetables join in. Okay, so vegetables, I could, if I was really stretching this, decide this is a project about vegetarians versus meat eaters, but I'm not going to go there. Because this guy's going crazy. He is not asleep. I think it's a rodent underneath, or I think that's a rodent. Yeah. Let me give it a clock. Now that is dramatic. Okay, so that was the big unlock. And I have some guesses of what might happen here, and that I probably don't want to put the shower on it, but I'll do it anyway. Right, so that's charming. Yeah, okay. I'm gonna jump right to it, put the flame on. Oh, and it went ahead and just, oh yeah. Told you it was about meat eating. Okay. And so we got a character. I'm getting a strong impression of this is maybe it's the mom of the house, the idea of the house of being maternal and taking care of the family. But I've found a little bit of a labyrinth here that's not literally laid out, but when I added the clock, I woke the house up, and then I went into the kitchen and cooked. I didn't get a chance to. I wonder if I can try the vegetables. So it's just a thought. Oh, well, I've already woken her up. Oh no, time. Oh, it's time. Somebody's gonna get off of work, I think. Crumb. Is 5 o'clock too late to go to school? Oh. Oh, good. Pick the kid up. Hope they're not too angry with me. Make some dinner. So that is an ending right there. I'm gonna go in again, maybe not for quite as long, but I'm gonna do it again. I'll go ahead and wake her up right away. Yep. Oh, goodness. But if I do the flame, I think I'm gonna get the eggs and sausage right away. Maybe that's just telling me I'm not supposed to fry bok choy. Maybe that's obvious. Is that what that's called? I think it is. Now let's try. Oh, okay, good. Then I'm not. I worried that I was sending the kid to school like at 1 in the afternoon. But let's not try this. Okay, that's interesting. There we go. I think someone's gonna show up soon, I think. There we go. So this project feels like a celebration, a showing respect for someone who takes care of a family. And some obvious things to say is the animation's amazing. It's really high quality 2D animation. And I like that the options at the bottom, the 6 or 7 icons at the bottom, I'm both curious what they do and excited when they activate something significant like going into the house and cooking, but also delighted when it does something more subtle, like just put the, well, maybe it's not subtle, but then the house gets on a bathtub boat and takes off for a minute. So it's a playful I think the best way to describe this is it's playful without being about conflict or stress. But there's definitely a sequence. There's definitely the ability to sort of unlock or accomplish a couple goals, in particular picking up the kid at school and then cooking the vegetables brings the dad home. And then it's very smart how you pull back at the end and show that the whole world's now doing the dishes. It's nighttime, and this is the end of the day, and we can go back and start it again. There's no doubt the music helps ground the tone of the project. It matches very well with making the house a face and giving it some detail like eyelashes and the like. It's actually a rare example of a playful project that's not so game-like and doesn't involve conflict, that also keeps me wrapped in, keeps me engaged. And I just don't feel rushed or anxious in it, and it feels rather surprising. Normally when I'm given choices and I'm given the possibility of unlocking sequences, I kind of feel like I need to get to it, somewhat literally like I'm doing the dishes. But in this case, I was content with the cycle.
Yeah, I also like the notion of the housekeeper, the shelter, but then also the manager, right? The person, the house that keeps everything going. And we see this menu of everyday items that we're totally familiar with, the items of those everyday procedures. And even though we would assume that we're experts in how to do those simple chores, how to use those items and what they mean and what they might do, it's actually a task to figure out what they do and how we manage best. So it's really the pleasure of combinatorial play, I find, where we figure out what works how in which situation. And I agree with Peter, it's not about conflict or so, but it's about, I think, something like friction. And friction is in this case the motivating factor that actually basically makes conflict. So we need to figure out what these items do, and then in a trial and error puzzle process, we figure out what the day-to-day procedure of the house is. And I found we actually discover a little bit of a mischievous pleasure in throwing stuff that's unfitting or unexpected at the house and then see how it handles it. And then I think, yeah, this is exactly how the day-to-day goes, right? There's the novelty of every day, but then there are these curveballs, and then you need to manage, and you need to, still you're gonna go pick up the child from school, and then if dad comes home, wants dinner, you better be ready. Like, it's the moment where we realize the sophistication, I think, of the routine of this every day. and how well things are managed and arranged so that they play out and they can deal with all of those mischievous little things that players throw at the house. So I find this is, yeah, I agree, beautiful animation, a beautiful setting, and in particular the very end. So we're very focused on this one house and the individual, and we figure out it's the process that is applying here. And then at the end, when you zoom out and every house starts to wash the dishes at the same time, you get this feeling of, all right, this is normalcy. This is what everybody does, and we're not any different. And those routines of the everyday exist everywhere, and they have everybody strong in their grip. Yeah, very cool.
Another thing you did that's pretty impressive is it has a lot of character, a lot of specificity. Obviously, the face is very communicative, and it also doesn't look like it's definitely in a particular country. It looks like it could be I think anyone could identify with this. So, you know, these rolling hills and this open sky, I don't know, there's a lot of places this could be. And I find that, but at the same time that it's got a lot of character. So I thought that was good.
That kind of goes along with the stereotypical nature of the everyday chores and the out of the normal, what do you do when you throw fire at the house, right? Well, we just sweat a little and we get it back to normal.
Do you think there's a bit of a danger in saying that this house is the mom, like making it gender specific? I mean, in Asia or maybe in Japan, it's not as a sensitive topic yet, but there is a possibility. Well, I'm sure a lot of people already are quite sensitive about it, but especially like in the US audience. What do you think?
Yeah, it would come up in conversation, you definitely. I have a funny solution, and I'm not being very serious, but at the end, it's clearly the dad doing the dishes. Would be a really like that's sometimes a solution to all that. But no, more seriously, or it could be a cycle where the next morning she takes off for work and and the eyelashes go away. I mean, I'm just riffing. There's all kinds of ways to do this, but it's a good thing to ask. But that's why I felt like this was actually, I didn't feel like this was expressing anything except I just assumed it was an appreciation for someone in your life who took care of you or took care of your family in the past. And that there's nothing offensive about that. If it was a woman or it was your mom or your grandmom or whatever, I'm not confident that's what's happening here. That's that personal, but it is just one. This is the dilemma with narrative, is that we often want it to be about one or two people stories, but then if you have one or two people, then they're always going to be an oversimplification of the entire planet, right? If you have one woman doing one thing that's one thing and you have one man doing something that's another, suddenly you can't escape the stereotype if that's what it's representing. It's representing the but my 2 cents, my small contribution is that it felt so familial. It felt so much about us appreciating someone that it worked for me.
I read it a little bit differently. I had the same question to myself when I was, so I was immediately thinking of, well, it's the maternal shelter or so of the house. And then I was wondering, wait a second, why am I saying this? And what are the elements that make me feel like that? There are some explicit elements, I guess, the eyelashes, and I think the person who comes home for dinner is the husband, and it seems to be male. So there are a couple elements that hint in this direction. And I found, well, I linger with the thought, wait a second, why am I thinking this? And that works quite well. It gets me to a place where I have to think, I'm actually participating in the system. I'm manipulating those items of everyday chores, and I'm throwing them into the life. I'm throwing them at the house. So it actually makes me think about what my contribution and my position towards gender stereotypes is. And I think that's actually a pretty good place to be in this question. We might get tipped off a little bit. Wait a second, it's stereotypical, but yes, it is stereotypical. I mean, this is the whole thing about the everyday life chores and the routine of picking up the child, or coming back from work, and so on. That's all stereotypical. So the gender stereotypes actually go right along with it, and making me think about, why am I thinking this, and why am I doing this? Why am I participating in this? I think it's a subtle but pretty good statement to make me pensive about it.
While making her contents, I sometimes asked her about only the woman should do the housekeeping. So are you for or against? What is your message? I asked, but she answered, I just wanted to express the housekeeper is busy. Ryuki, is it your concept?
Yes. the routine life, and also I want to express the even though it's a routine, but I want to have something interesting things happen that makes me feel the routine also can be respectable, something like that. Also, everybody's life is a routine, so.
Yeah, the routine has something comforting also, right? Something that gives a certain security and so on. I can see that, yes. Yeah.
Okay,
Is that
very good.
Modeled
Wonderful.
on a personal experience? Sorry, I didn't mean to keep that up, but Peter had the strong feeling it's the kind of the celebration of somebody who played this role for you. Just curious, you don't have to answer that. Yeah.
なんかすごく
I mean, it
身
feels
近な
personal at the same time.
身近な人のことをこう思い描きながら作ったんですか？
何ですか？
そのすごくこのなんていうのかな、男と女とかそういう性差別とかをこう全く感じないでこの作品と関われたのはやっぱり呉さんにとって非常にパーソナルなところから生まれたような感じがしたからなっていう意見がピーター先生からあって、なんか誰か特定の人に対するすごいこうリスペクトとか感謝の気持ちがあって作ったんですかっていう質問。
個人でもありますし、またこの主婦の姿がまあちょっと何と言いますかね、多分みんなもそうと思ったかもしれないので。
それは男女関係なくってことかな。まあ普遍的でもあるし、個人的なものでもある。
両方もあります。
There's both aspects of being a very personal narrative or a perspective, but also she felt like it was a universal topic.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's what I felt nicely expressed by the zoom out at the very end, right? So we're focused on the character, and then yes, it's a universal thing that everybody washes the dishes at the same time. Very nice. Yeah, cool. Congratulations, all of you. Very good work. Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much for letting us be part of this process. It's quite a treat for me meeting you students last year, and then seeing your progress with your projects here. And as we've already talked about, the collaboration with our students, it was just so rewarding. They had such a good time, and I mean, their friends are jealous, basically. So the younger students are asking all about it, you know, if they can be part of it. And I just go, maybe, yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens next. I kind of joke with them. And I make jokes that America's got to get its act together with COVID and all whatnot. So I'm hopeful, though. There's a future in that.
Yeah, as I said, I completely echo that. What I found really impressive is the quality of the projects and the kind of the endeavoring topics that you worked with in those projects. This is something that I find we don't necessarily always see. I mean, there is, at least among our students, I think with learning what a burn down chart is and how to do all these more pipeline oriented procedures, there is another part that fades a little bit to the background, that if you want to do serious experimentation, it kind of conflicts with your burn down chart and the timed process of producing stuff, right? So it's generally a little bit of a friction in our program here and there. It's the friction has been mostly smoothed out, but in these moments, I feel, yeah, there are elements, there are big elements that are actually missing. And what I found in this collaboration is something of that is brought back in. And I found in the collaborative projects, we really see how both components working together can be extremely powerful.
Agreed.
Yeah, it was good fun. Let's do that again.
Thank you, Andreas and Peter. We appreciate your great contribution to our collaboration program. So,
yeah, thank you.
Well, as Peter said, thank you for allowing us to participate in it.
Yeah, Sylvie's bugging me like crazy. When am I going back to Japan? And I tell her it's not my fault.
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you for staying on much longer than I had announced. But I hope you get a good night's rest tonight. And, let's start talking about the workshop.
Yes.
Oh yeah, it's coming up. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.